This is the Elven Crystal Chest, overlooked by most players, but unlocking it and collecting the Dragonstone armor is one of the most grueling grinds an Iron Man can do. At max efficiency, you can maybe get 6 keys an hour, but if you want this armor, you will need over 5,000 keys. And why does this matter? Well, this is Prifddinas, my Xtreme one-chunk Iron Man, a game mode where I lock myself to a tiny area of the map until I complete its highest skilling challenges, get all best in slot gear, and get everything in the collection log. Using my best methods, it would take 100,000 hours to get those 5,000 keys. But can I really say I've completed Prifddinas without them? Welcome back to Prifddinas, everybody. Specifically to this small market area, my home for the next 50 hours or so, while I knock out my thieving grind. And I know what you're thinking, what does this have to do with crystal chests? Well, in classic Iron Man style, I'm several steps down the rabbit hole of tangential grinds. Because the crystal chest needs crystal keys, and crystal keys need 80 crafting to make, and to train my crafting I want gems from that gem stall. So I may as well knock out my 85 thieving grind to complete 3 separate chunk tasks, to pickpocket an elf as my highest skilling challenge, a diary task, and to get an enhanced crystal teleport seed. And to be honest, I just really want to start and finish a grind, to get some more things ticked off the chunk picker, so I can at least feel one step closer to finishing this absurdly long list of chunk tasks. Most grinds I've started so far, like 99 smithing, 87 fletching, and greenlogging the gauntlet, are potentially hundreds of hours. So a nice little 50-hour grind is going to feel like a holiday, and will really get the dopamine flowing. Now, let's talk about the thieving methods I have available to me. In order to reach my goal, I have access to these 4 stalls, and because I had to complete Morning's End Part 1 to get here, I already have 53 thieving, so I can already steal from the silk and silver stalls. With just these 2 stalls, it's pretty easy to tuck myself between them, and I can mostly get away with it without being caught. And when I do get caught, it's pretty annoying to reset the aggro, but there is a much bigger issue that I will have when I unlock the other stalls, as there is nowhere to hide. So I was thinking that if I want a better method, I'm going to have to find one myself, because who else would need to steal from low-level stalls when they're progressed enough to unlock Prif? However, the wiki came through with an excellent method to trap all of the guards. You just watched me trap the first in the food shop, and I'm about to trap the second one in there too. Waiting for the other NPCs to get out of the way can be a little annoying, but once you trap them in there, they stay until you leave the area. Time for the third and last guard. And this one, you have to do 2 very precise movements to get them stuck into the space behind the silk stall. I am still in awe that someone worked this out. I'm probably the first person to seriously use it, and it's going to save me so much time. And now, I'm free to steal as much as I like, as long as I don't leave this area. So with the basic thieving method sorted, I should probably explain why this chest is going to take me 100,000 hours. Each time you open the Elven Crystal Chest, there is a 1 in 2,500 chance of getting one of the 5 pieces of Dragonstone armor. At first glance, you would think you would have to open this chest 2,500 times to get all of the items, but unfortunately, the maths doesn't quite work out like that. To help understand this properly, I put together a small Python program that simulated 1 million players opening the chest until they got the full armor set. And after opening the chest 2,500 times, you would only have a 10% chance of having all 5 items. Even after opening the chest 5,000 times, you only have a 48% chance of completing the whole set. And if you go all the way to 10,000, almost 10% of people would still be missing 1 or more items. And finally, with a little help from GameCube Jonas's drop rate videos, I can work out that the average number of times I will need to loot this chest is 5,708, which just leaves one big question. Where can I get the key to this chest? They almost exclusively come from the rare and gem drop tables, and currently I can only kill 3 monsters that access these tables. And as the names suggest, the drop rates are not good. In a stroke of luck for me, using my best in slot gear and very optimistic stats, the quickest of these to kill is actually the Elves, which also have the best drop rate. But I shouldn't celebrate too quickly, as I would need to kill over 18 million to get 5,700 keys, and using the same very optimistic estimates, I can kill 180 elves an hour, which is how I'm getting to 100,000 hours. Now, I want to make it clear that this isn't intended to be a chunk task. Rules as written, it isn't one anyway. But not all of my goals have to be chunk tasks, and I think it's very important for Prifchunk to eventually complete all content in Prifddinas. And that includes this unique armor set, although I am not completely delusional, and getting even one piece would be a huge achievement. So, as I explore the map, there will be more and more opportunities to earn crystal keys. But if I'm ever going to achieve this goal, then I need to take every opportunity and optimization to complete this task. Which brings me here, to my tiny area of the overworld, staring into the void, wondering what it would be like to play RuneScape like a regular person again. Just one step, and I could be free. Free from this hell. Nah, just kidding. I'm hopping worlds looking for Implings, as I think they could hold the answer. But right now, I need to find out if they can even get here. There are a lot of fixed spawn locations all over the world, and Implings will typically stay within a radius of 100 tiles of their spawn point. And the nearest spawn point to me is less than 100 tiles away. But if you think back to doing the Regicide quest, the area south of Prif is an impassable nightmare, even for Implings. For them to get to me from the nearest spawn, they have to fly directly east, avoid getting stuck on any trees, across this river, then find the way to this exact 2-tile gap, turn north, and all the way up the path to Prif. So it is possible, but the chance of an Impling doing this is extremely unlikely. So unlikely that I'm not sure if it's even going to be possible, as they only have 30 minutes to complete this journey before they despawn. And so far, my worries have been confirmed. This is the second time I've been out here and visited every world looking for Implings, and not only have they not reached my chunk, I'm yet to see one at all. But I'm not ready to give up. I'll be back later when the next set spawns. Right, back to thieving. I've been grinding away at this on mobile, so I'm a little bit light on clips, but here is 60 thieving. Nothing new to unlock here, but it's my first major thieving level since I arrived. And now, just before I get to 65 thieving and unlock the next method, I want to check out what the XP has been like, so I can work out how long this took, and have a reasonable baseline to work from when I unlock the next stall. Around 55,000 XP an hour is not too bad, and it's taken around 5.5 hours to get from 53 to 65. It's not exactly the rate you get with meta thieving methods, but with how easy it is, I'm very happy, especially as I'm about to hit 65 thieving, so things can only get better from here. And there we go, Spice Stool unlocked. Like the silk and silver stores I can already steal from, the drops are not very useful, but I can easily add this into the current strategy, get much better XP rates. So the new stool respawns at a similar rate to the silk stool, but gives 4 times the XP, and the silver stool respawns much slower but gives a lot more XP. So it's pretty easy to just steal from the silver stool, run over to the spice stool, steal 3 times, and repeat. Super easy, only a little more work than before, but now I get 80k XP an hour, for a little under 10 hours to level 75, when I can start stealing from the gem stool. But there is more I can be doing. I have a few seconds spare waiting for the spice stool to respawn, where I can run over and steal some silk for max efficiency. Using this method, I can get around 90k XP an hour. But this is where things start to get a little sweaty. Running between all 3 stalls, trying to lose as little XP as possible, means that I lose run energy, and walking will completely kill this method. And this gives me the perfect excuse to use some tech that I've been dying to try out somewhere. A few episodes ago, I trained cooking with forester's rations, and these things can be used to restore run energy when you cut logs. And I can bring an axe and a forester's kit, and it doesn't even use any inventory space. All I have to do now is fit chopping a tree into the rotation, and I can keep this method up indefinitely. I'm so excited to find a use for forester's rations. But I do hate this method. There's so much clicking, as I also have to drop everything, and it takes 100% of my focus to get another 10k XP an hour, or I can still get 80k with barely paying any attention. So I'm going to take the easy option and save my focus time for harder things, like the corrupted gauntlet. Now, I know there was no malicious intent, or even any consideration for this, But whoever decided to set this up so I'm stealing silk silver spices from the silk silver spices stall is a bastard, and this has been very hard to record. And I'm back out looking for Implings. This is trip number 4 and nothing so far. I'm starting to think that it may just be impossible for Implings to make the trip through the forest. But while I hop worlds, let me explain how this can actually help me get crystal keys. There is one item in the game that will literally double the drop chance of crystal keys on almost every monster that can drop them. The Ring of Wealth. On top of automatically picking up coins, this ring removes the nothing drop from the rare and gem drop table, making everything else on it twice as likely to drop, and halving the number of elves I would need to kill down from 18 million to a measly 9 million. This obviously doesn't make this an achievable goal. It's still 50,000 hours, but this ring affects hundreds of monsters around the game, making the Dragonstone armor a possible long-term goal that I will constantly be working towards over the life of this account. The Implings don't actually drop the ring themselves, but eclectic Implings drop oak planks, and with 8 oak planks I can build a tool store 4, giving me access to jewelry molds in my house and the ability to make rings myself. The access to the tool store will come with several other consequences for my account, both good and bad, but right now I've actually managed to find the first Impling at the gates of Prifddinas. Here we go. I have been hopping for ages just to try and find Implings which actually wander over to me, and I found 2 at the same time, which is crazy. And are they going to come in? Come on. No, no, we're not leaving that chunk. After hopping every single world 4 times for a total of 1,000 worlds checked, and I've actually found 2 in the same world. The RNG in this game is crazy sometimes. Eclectic. What are we going to get? No. 43 air runes. Nice. Come on, Gourmet Impling. The second one must have come up from the low-level Impling spawn further down south. Come on. In you come. Like 50-50 that it goes up the path or down the path. Finding 2 of them here at the very extremes of their wander range, in a maze of an area at the same time, may be the rarest thing I've ever seen in this game. Yes. And I get a tuner. Nice. So that is huge. Only took me, that was my 3rd attempt, I think, of hopping through every single world. So finding Implings, not very easy. But they do wander over here, so that has been confirmed. Now I know it's actually possible to happen naturally. I somehow need to work out how to catch around 20 eclectic Implings to get the planks that I need. And I will work on that plan while I go back to train thieving. And I've been putting in the hours, already at 75 and time to unlock the last stool. Finally, a stool that gives something that I could use. And I want to take advantage of that as much as possible. I could easily just add this stool into my current thieving method. It takes a minute to respawn and gives you 400 XP per theft, and would easily boost my current method up to over 100,000 XP an hour, which sounds bad when you compare it to an unrestricted account that can get over twice that much experience per hour. But for an Xtreme onechunk account, 50% efficiency is a pretty big win. But this isn't the method I want to go with, as I would only end up with 1,200 gems and 60,000 crafting XP by the time I get to level 85. Instead, I can hop worlds to just steal gems from the gem store, getting me over 250,000 crafting XP from gems, and potentially up to 120,000 XP per hour. But realistically, I lose some of that as the guards are wandering free and will either catch me, or I need to wait around until they move somewhere safer. If I could get my hands on 10 accounts, then I could keep them all trapped on enough worlds, but it's really not worth the effort that that would take. Instead, I've just tagged all the guards in this garish red, and I got pretty good at either line of sighting them on the corner of this stall, or if I do aggro them, then they can be safe spotted by the stall pretty easily. This shouldn't take me more than 20 hours, and I can be done with the stalls and move on to the last phase of thieving and Prif and steal directly from the elves. With the method set up, I once again logged into the grind, trying to work on this whenever I had free time, which sometimes meant playing on mobile and going back to the guard trapping method, as world hopping on mobile is truly terrible. And as this is just skilling with no RNG elements, I didn't really bother to record the gameplay, as I didn't think anything interesting could happen.
Collection log slot, completed.
I got a Rocky, my first pet, and it feels extremely spooned at a little over 2 million XP. But in hindsight, I had a pretty good chance of getting this one, as stalls have some of the best drop rates, but still quite spooned. Although it's not the pet I was hoping to get spooned, it's still one of my favourites, and so far I've been very lucky everywhere in Prif, so I really hope that continues. And if you want to help me give this little raccoon a name, I'm going to let chat pick it on Twitch later tonight. Or if you just want to help me grind the Smallcano pet, I'm live on Twitch Tuesdays and Fridays at 8 PM BST. Links to that and my Discord are in the description. While I get on with thieving on Prifddinas, let me introduce you to my main. Since I made Prifddinas, it has almost exclusively been used for luring Implings, and today is no different. I've set up camp here at the closest Impling spawn to Prif, and while I'm doing the thieving grind, I'm also hopping worlds here, looking for eclectic Implings. So here's the plan. Hop worlds here until I find an eclectic Impling. Then use Dark Lure to get it as close to the path as possible. And now for the frustrating part. The Impling needs to go most of the way over the river on its own, as Dark Lure does not have a long enough range. But if it does go the wrong direction, I can lure it back to this spot until it goes the correct way. Then, when it's close enough, I can use my regular Iron Man to lure it the rest of the way over the river. And sorry, I know it's a little confusing, but this account looks exactly like Prifddinas. I've been using it when I need to capture B-roll outside of Prifddinas. I know not everyone is going to love the idea of luring things into my chunk, and it's exceptionally silly when I'm using 2 accounts to chain lures across a river, but it's a very common thing for chunkers to do, and I have shown it's possible to happen naturally. I'm just nudging them in the right direction. And frankly, I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to get my hands on a Ring of Wealth. This was the only time I recorded my other accounts doing this, just to show you the method, but I can assure you now that the other Implings were nowhere near this cooperative. I usually spent 5 to 10 minutes on each one waiting for them to just cross over that stupid river. And with a bit more persuasion, I can lure the Impling all the way up to the real Prifddinas and catch it. Curry leaves from the first imp. Not what I needed, but it does mean I have a reasonable plan to catch them, so it shouldn't be too painful to catch the 20 that I need for 8 oak planks. And to show I've got the method down, here's Impling 2 for more curry leaves, Impling 3 for gold bars, 4 for some snape grass, and 5 for a mithril pickaxe. And I'll continue to scout more in my main while I get back to thieving on Prifddinas. And here is level 84 thieving. Not the goal that I need, not the final level, it's one away from it, but I just wanted to take a little second to complain about world hopping. So excited to stop world hopping. Just do a quick bit of maths. So for the 300,000 XP I have left to get to level 85, I only need to world hop 765 times, which isn't that bad. But I think this is the end of like the serious world hopping content, so yeah, just having one more level of it left, and then everything else I can do with like more traditional training methods where I just, you know, stand around and do stuff. I'm sure I'll eat these words when I find another terrible method where I have to world hop all the time. But for now, another 800 world hops to do, and then we're done. For at least a little bit. And here we are with the last of the world hopping, for thieving at least, and 85 thieving complete. The last level I need to get in this chunk. And I am so glad this is over, as I can now pickpocket from Elves, and I'm ready to work on our 3 chunk tasks, 2 of which are easier than the other. And 85 thieving doesn't pop up in the clan chat, it's very sad. Anyway, this means I could do some important things. Firstly, get rid of these markers. I've hated having them there, they're super ugly, but it made it way easier to quickly identify the guards when I was world hopping. Then, I can grab some cash out of the bank and buy fish from this food shop here. So if I pickpocket it in this general area, then I can just return to the shop and buy more supplies when I get low. So it should be pretty straightforward. I just have to get the 1 in 1024 enhanced crystal teleport seed, and I am completely finished with my thieving obligations. So let's just ignore this extremely creepy person here and start pickpocketing. My success rate should be around 35% right now, so I wasn't expecting to get this on the first try. Hopefully this method won't feel too bad. Oof. Surely it can't be this bad. did have some big hopes for pickpocketing elves, that maybe I could use them as an AFK method, as all the drops are really good, and if I die, I can just respawn over there and keep going. But my gut feeling is this is going to be pretty terrible, as it took 11 tries to get my first pickpocket. But at least that's 2 chunk tasks complete. This is supposed to be the meta way of getting crystal shards, and it has a crazy number of bots running around. This totally legitimate player has 180 million thieving XP, which tells me it must also be really fun. And foolishly, I thought that because it's so good, that it would at least be okay for me. But to do this method, it's recommended that you have the Shadow Veil spell and dodgy necklaces to stop you getting stunned, the thieving cape and the RD hard diary to increase your success chance, and the rogue's outfit to double the loot. I have literally none of this, so I'm stuck here with a 35% chance to succeed, taking 5 damage and getting stunned for 5 seconds every time I fail, and only getting half the loot. And it really doesn't feel like the food I'm buying can keep up with the damage I'm taking. I think I'm going to get my hands on this teleport seed, and then never look back. Time for a quick Impling update. And it's been going pretty well as eclectics aren't that hard to find, so I haven't had any trouble finding a few every day. I'm up to 15 now, and I've only got one interesting item, the blue D'hide chaps. Not a biz item, but it's a nice upgrade for range training before I can get to 70 defense and use crystal legs. And back to thieving. Now time to try out a new method after I gave up almost halfway to the drop rate of the teleport seed. I felt like eating food was taking way too much time, so instead, I can pickpocket the elves right next to the Prifddinas spawn point. This way, death will fully heal me, and I can get straight back to pickpocketing without wasting time eating or worrying about my health at all. And I must admit, it's an improvement. But I never thought I would say this, but I miss the world hopping. This is so much worse, and I'm sorry that I ever said a bad thing about the method. But this was never going to be that long of a grind, and the next day, and most of the way to level 86, I got the drop. There we go, I am done. This was worse. I fucking miss doing stalls. Hopping for stalls was better than all of this being stunned all the time. Oh. I'm not sure why I'm still cooking, but yeah. There we go. Thieving has been completed in its entirety, and with the pet as an added bonus. But I've not talked about what the Eternal Crystal Teleport Seed actually does. It works the same as a regular teleport crystal, teleporting me to the middle of Prif and much later to Letia, but it doesn't need charging. So I'm thinking it's going to be very useful for the construction grind with all the running round I'm going to have to do, but I'm sure I'll find plenty of other uses for it in the future. Right now, I can't turn the seed into the crystal until I get to 80 crafting, and as I said in my last video, I don't want to waste crystals paying elves to make things for me, so it's time to get working on crafting. And that means getting these Implings caught, because the jewelry molds will also allow me to convert all of the silver and gold ore I got from Volcano into huge amounts of crafting XP. And number 16 was my first set of oak planks. Can I get them back to back? Ooh, I can. And that is all the planks I need for now. There are a few other interesting things I could build with oak planks, but they would essentially be quality of life upgrades, so they can wait until I've finished with this chunk. So let's get building this thing. Time for a quick trip to the bank to pick up the tools. I need money, a hammer, and a saw, which it looks like I don't have yet, as I haven't touched construction until now. I'm waiting until I've done most of the CG grind and I can actually afford it. So I also need to go to the sawmill to buy a saw, which is actually the item that's stopping most chunk accounts from training construction. You need it to build almost everything, and there are only a handful of places in the game to get one. And there we go, I now have all the tools I need. All that's left is to go speak to an estate agent. Can I move my house, please? Let's start with that. 50k to move my house here. It may be the most expensive, but it's not a huge cost, and I think my player-owned house is going to be very important for future grinds. For example, when I unlock Zulrah, teleporting back here will allow me to safely get rid of Venom. I can also redecorate, and Jagex did mention a Prif style over a year ago in one of their blogs, but I have fully accepted that I'm never going to get that, and I can worry about decorations later when I'm fully committed to the construction grind. For now, I just want to get in and get access to these jewelry molds. So let's build a workshop, wait quickly for the house to reload, and then I can build the tool space and upgrade tools, and upgrade tools. And that's tool store 4 built, giving me access to all the jewelry molds. But let's check out all the tools I can now get. Saw, hammer, chisel, shears are all already available. Same with the bucket, spade, tinderbox, and knife. And here is the good stuff. Amulet mold, necklace mold, ring mold, holy symbol, tiara mold, and bracelet. Now, those are the good things from the tool stores. All of them, with the exception of the holy mold, are going to give good training methods or account upgrades. But there is one tool store left that I haven't checked yet, and I think it's going to cause me some problems. Now have access to a glass blowing pipe, and with the sand from the sand pit and seaweed from water fiends, my crafting goal will now go from 82 crafting to create a bowfer to 87 crafting to create an empty light orb. An extra 5 levels may not seem like a lot, but that's another 1.5 million crafting XP that I need to find from somewhere. So it's going to be a pretty serious grind, but at the end of the day, it should be well worth it. But right now, it's time to make some jewelry. Because I used phoenix necklaces to beat the fragment of Seren fight, I actually have the crafting level to make a dragonstone ring already, and my gauntlet grind has got me the magic level to enchant it. So I can quickly cut a dragonstone, craft a ring, and then enchant it. And there it is. It's going to be glued to my finger for the foreseeable future, and hopefully it can make the dream of obtaining dragonstone armor a lot more realistic. Weirdly, it's not even technically a chunk task, as it doesn't have any actual stats, but it is the jewelry I'm most excited to get my hands on. And the jewelry molds do actually give 3 new BIS items: the Amulet of Strength, Combat Bracelet, and an Amulet of Glory. Huge upgrades for all combat styles, and should speed up a few of my grinds. Right now, I can only craft one of them, the Amulet of Strength. Let's get that made by smelting the amulet. Then I just need to hunt down a ball of wool from the seamstress so I can actually string the amulet. And that will give me a new best in slot item that should stay with me for a very long time. So let's give this thing a little test. I guess killing chickens isn't really going to show the benefit of 2 extra max hits, but everything else in the chunk is so hard to kill. So what I think I'm going to do is train crafting to 74 so I can get my hands on a combat bracelet, which will be an upgrade for all combat styles, and then have a go at fighting an enemy a little more challenging. So while I grind away at the crafting, we may as well talk about what I'm going to be making. I have a lot of crafting supplies from my grind so far. Volcano drops gold and silver ore, and I have a lot of gems from thieving and the gauntlet. The silver can just be made into tiaras. It's the best XP from what I can make, as most of the jewelry requires the semi-precious gems, opal, jade, or red topaz, and I'm not going to be seeing any of them for a very long time. Now the gold jewelry is a bit more interesting. I will mostly just make bracelets with them. Amulets may actually give more crafting XP, but the bracelets are worth a lot more money. While I don't think money is going to be a big problem for me, there are a few grinds that can be sped up by throwing money at them, and with a bit of luck I may be able to save up 250 million for the crystal crown. On top of that, there are a couple more interesting items that I can make. The teleport jewelry could be interesting later in the account, but is mostly irrelevant. Rings of recoil aren't useful now, but I'll need thousands when I roll Zulra. Rings of forging would normally be huge for a chunk account, but as I have plenty of nature runes, I much prefer superheating iron ore while mining. But it is one of those grinds where I want a lot of money. Bracelets of clay could be useful at some point, as they double the clay I get from soft clay rocks, but I kind of doubt it will be a serious consideration. And then I'll make at least one of all the combat jewelry. Even if it's not BIS, it will be useful until I get a glory. And while I may not need these items now, I would rather make a supply of them now while I have a crafting grind. Time for the first milestone of 70 crafting, giving me the level to make my first piece of crystal armor, the crystal helm, and diamond amulets, which I'm going to make now. Which when enchanted will become an amulet of power and will be my best amulet for range training until I make an amulet of glory. I've also made myself an amulet of magic. but I forgot to record the clips. And now I have the amulets of strength, power and magic. I have a very solid neck slot for each combat style, and I'm nearly ready to start grinding some crystal keys. Quickly stopping in at 72 crafting, the level to make crystal legs. And then quickly on to 74 crafting, the level where I can make a crystal chest, unlocking the full set of crystal armor. Well, when I get 6 crystal armor seeds. And the thing that I want to make right now, the Dragonstone bracelet. Now I can quickly enchant that and get my hands on a combat bracelet. I feel like this item is only used on mains in the early game, as most irons will get Barrow's gloves way before 74 crafting. And look at those stats. Getting another item with strength bonus on it feels like such a luxury for a chunk account. And I get to say my favorite words, chunk task complete, with a bis item for 2 combat styles. So let's go test this out. I'm getting kitted out in my best melee gear with a rune halberd to see how I like safe spotting moss giants with melee. They aren't the best drop rate for crystal keys, but I need 4 different collection logs from them right now, and they should be the easiest to kill with my current gear setup. Right now I might not have the patience for a 7-tick weapon with my current terrible melee stats, so let's try a rune scimitar instead. Well, my DPS is much better, but I'm getting slapped around by this thing. They attack with both magic and melee, and I'm starting to think that you can't pray against the magic attack. I will need to train my attack up to level 80 to equip the Blade of Saildor, but I think I'm going to need to do some more testing before I find an effective melee training method. And the time for that is not now. I can fall back to safe spotting with magic and ranged. And since these things were given a 50% fire weakness, killing them with fire spells is extremely effective. Both the Gauntlet and Volcano drop high level runes, so I have a pretty decent supply of death and chaos runes to work my way through, but it's probably best to save the blood runes for something a little more challenging. I'm not too worried about training my magic level, but defensive casting is a great way to train defense, and it works towards my goal, level 70 for crystal armor. I have a feeling that more defense levels should really help with consistency inside the corrupted gauntlet. And here is the first of the collection logs from Moss Giants, the Mossy Key. I'm getting better at recording on mobile. This time I was recording, but changed apps to reply to a message, just in time for the drop. And then for the second of the easy collection logs from Moss Giants, the Long Bone. This one is 1 in 400, and the key is 1 in 120. I think I will be getting a lot of these two while I grind for the Curved Bone and the Giant Champion Scroll, which are both around 1 in 5,000. So I'll have a lot of Moss Giants ahead of me, and hopefully I'll be able to grind out some crystal keys along the way. And I have been picking up a few key pieces, and that is probably the last thing that I haven't talked about yet. The keys themselves rarely drop fully made. You either get a tooth half or a loop half, and you combine them into a single crystal key. The drop rate for each part is always the same, so over the hundreds of thousands of monsters I'm going to have to kill on this account, it should all average out in a way that means the drop rate for an entire key is the same as the drop rate for either half. And it feels like I've been getting a little lucky at the start here for keys, but with a grind of this scale, I know it's going to even out. And I've also been mixing up and doing some range training here. I have a U-short bow that I bought from the range shop in Prif, and I have essentially infinite mithril arrows from the gauntlet that I really can't think of a good use for. To be honest, I can't really think of a good use for the adamant or rune arrows either, so I probably should have used them instead to speed this up. As once I get the level for the crystal bow, then arrows are going to be a thing of the past. So this was probably not as efficient as it could have been. At least I have a power amulet and combat bracelet to give me a nice damage boost. Let's quickly check the DPS calcs. It turns out it only gives me a 0.08 DPS increase. I thought that these things would make a much bigger difference to my DPS. Then again, my damage is so bad that this is actually a 4% damage increase. I guess the jewelry will only really shine with melee combat, where it gives a much more respectable 20% damage increase because of how good strength bonus is compared to accuracy bonuses. And if you're wondering why I'm getting defense levels from ranging, I was close to this level 60 defense, just 10 more to go before I can equip the crystal armor and allow me to equip 4 new bis items. As I've just spent so long making bracelets, I've been using some of my time killing moss giants efficiently by high alching them and some of my CG loot so I can build up a cash stack for construction. And I've just reached a very big milestone, 10 million GP. The green stack always looks so nice, but this is still only a fraction of the money I'm going to need before this chunk is over. There we go. The plans are set in motion, and I have slightly increased my odds of achieving my dream of owning at least one piece of Dragonstone armor. And I obviously can't finish this video without opening the Elven Crystal chest at least a few times. But I'm a bit stupid sometimes, and the clip for 80 crafting is going to be in the next video. But that doesn't stop me from using these 5 keys I have ready to go now. With any luck, I could get extremely spooned, so I'm going to sink these into enhanced crystal keys and give them a spin. And I can head over to the singing bowl over here, and also just have to combine the 2 halves up, and then use the singing crystal to create all of them. Nice, huge XP drop for both crafting and smithing. And before I open these, it's probably worth talking a little bit about what I can get from this other than the Dragonstone armor. That might be interesting. I can get more tooth and loop half of keys and also full keys, which would both be great. Another chance at the Dragonstone armor is better than almost anything else on the drop table. And then there is the elephant in the room, the 1 in 10,000 chance and uncut onyx. I'm not sure why most of the meme grinds in this game seem to involve this gem. And like the onyx from Zolcano, it's just a huge meme grind. And hopefully I'll roll Zulrah quite quickly when I leave Prifddinas, as getting the onyx drop from Zulrah would cross this off the collection log. The rest is pretty standard skilling supplies, with yew seeds being the least useful to me and crystal acorns and dragon plate legs being the standout items. The plate legs would actually be a nice little upgrade to my melee setup. So let's see what I can get from these 5. Oh, another crystal key. Not bad. And also each one comes with an uncut dragonstone, just like the regular crystal keys. Ooh, you see, as we said, that is the worst. Nature runes, also pretty bad. 35 crystal shards, not going to complain. And then some uncut rubies and diamonds, which is not too bad. As we rolled a crystal key, then I should quickly head back over to, let's use the other singing bowl this time, as I believe it is closer. We might as well run it back and make this other crystal key and see what we can get. And my last opening gets me another yew seed. Well, I'm not too surprised by this level of disappointment. Most of the loot isn't that exciting. But we have done 6 keys now, so that's about 1% of the way to the first item. As I said, it's going to be a long grind, but I think we should get some more at least before we leave Prifddinas. Hopefully, this can be another place where I get spooned. That's it for this one. Huge progress on several of my skilling grinds. And I think I should be set up nicely for some serious combat training in the next episode. Sorry about the long break between videos. Life got pretty busy when I had my second child back in June. But I've still been grinding as much as possible, and things are mostly back to normal now, so the wait for the next video should be much shorter. And you can always pop into my streams if you're desperate for more Prif chunk. A big shout out to my channel members on screen now, and check out these playlists if you still need to see how I got to Prif, or you want to see everything I've done since I got here.